already, but like, especially you talk about performance, it's so important to have a consistent and good sleep schedule. Um, Mental health, it's huge. A lot of like mental health issues, they give you like sleeping pills and stuff like that. Like sleep is a foundation.
Welcome to Iron Summit, where we cover topics about health, fitness, and general performance through the eyes of former elite Division I wrestlers.
All
Same
right.
as
I'm sorry, Max, but we got to address the elephant in the room. The mustache. What happened? Tell me about it.
the mustache. It was a typical. So this is my first. I call it my first public mustache because it's the first time I've ever
It's a
had a
bold move on
mustache in
around
public.
Christmas too. That's a bold move.
Yeah. Well, as every man does when he's shaving, I had a beard about your length, not as thick, but you know, pretty good beard from No Shave November.
Nice.
And as every man does when they're shaving, they like shave the whole beard off and then you leave just the mustache for those like 5 minutes of glory.
Yeah.
And Alexis saw it and she was like, "You should leave it." And I was like, "Wait, really?"
Wow, dude,
Yeah.
that's insane. Yeah, I'm usually the type of person that when Chloe tells me I shouldn't leave a mustache, I leave it longer because of that. So she's learned to not comment when I'm in that mode.
Well, you need to tell Chloe that Alexis is supportive of my mustache.
Oh, I'll let her
So
know.
yeah. So that's what happened. And then it was more like because I was really taken aback and I don't have the best facial hair genetics. So then it became she was trying to convince me to leave it because we were actually going to a holiday party like that evening. And she convinced me to leave it. Now, after like 3 days, I'm kind of starting to like it. So
I like it. I like it
I'm
a lot.
definitely sticking with it through Christmas, the
Little bit of a
holiday
teaser
mustache.
too. A little bit of a teaser for a incoming guest.
Yeah. Yep. Can't say who, but
It'll make sense soon.
yeah. But yeah, I'm sticking with it for the time being. I mean, I want it to connect better in the middle. So if
Dude,
anyone
I get
has any
that too.
tips,
The reverse Hitler. I don't know how that happens, but that's what it
how,
is.
yours looks like it connects better than mine.
It's the lighting, dude. I'm telling you, it's like I don't know. All
I have
right,
like
so
two separate mustaches on my face.
that's the French. You should shave it real thin.
Yeah, I might as well just embrace it at this point.
Dude, I want mine to connect better here so I could do a handlebar.
Yeah. No, you could definitely. Maybe one day we'll get to see Ryan with a mustache.
Maybe one day. All right,
Well, let's get into our topic.
absolutely. You wanna tackle a start here?
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about the basics of sleep and why sleep is important for performance and maximizing your health. And really, as we've discussed in our Five Pillars podcast and touched on, even when we've talked about training, that recovery is half the battle, like at least half the battle. Being able to train hard, wrestle hard, lift weights hard, whatever you're doing is only half the battle because you need to recover on the other side. And probably the single most important aspect of recovery is sleep. And I would go so far as saying that sleep is one of the, if not the most important thing to optimize in general for your health, for athletic performance, for mental health. Everything is sleep is king for
Yeah,
recovery. So yeah, we'll start there, but can't stress the importance of sleep.
absolutely. And I think too, it's funny, like you got like there's a lot of like gurus out there now that are like, I only sleep 5 hours a night bragging about it. Like they grind so much and do all this stuff, but it's like sleep is so important for us. And if we like didn't need sleep, we would have figured that out already. But like, especially you talk about performance, it's so important to have a consistent and good sleep schedule. Um, Mental health, it's huge. A lot of like mental health issues, they give you like sleeping pills and stuff like that. Like sleep is a foundation of, you're sick. What's the first thing your mom tells you is like, get some sleep. I think sleep is so easy to overlook and it's always I don't know, there's a lot of changing with sleep because of the fact that, I mean, whether you're traveling through time zones or as you get older, or there's like, I don't know, you're always gonna have some kind of, um, I don't know, throughout your life, sleep will change or you're in a different bed or so there's a lot of factors, but I think trying to get the most consistent environment is like the biggest thing you can do. And if you can figure out your sleep, it's something that just a little thing that stacks over time. And a lot of people do a bad job with that. And I
Yeah.
think, I don't know, it's definitely one of the lowest hanging fruits that has biggest bang for your buck, in my
Yep.
opinion.
Which we talk about a lot and talk about those low hanging fruits. But yeah, sleep is incredibly important. It is overlooked by a lot of people. People want to look at shortcuts around good sleep, but really there are none. Um, yes, why don't we let's get into why sleep is important. We kind of put together a few points on the different reasons that sleep is super important for recovery. The first one being muscle recovery and repair. While you sleep is when, especially in the deep sleep portion of your sleep cycle, is when your body's doing a lot of the work to repair, muscle breakdown, soft tissue injuries. It's where this actual healing really happens. And this is due to several factors, but one of the most important pieces is the release of growth hormone while you sleep, kind of before bed and then as you're sleeping. That helps your body repair soft tissue, muscle, and that is done while you are sleeping. So, and I've felt it in my own training. I'm sure you have as well, Ryan. When I'm sleeping well, I'm recovering faster. I have less residual muscle soreness from hard training. I'm stronger. There's like the importance of sleep for muscle recovery cannot be overstated.
And I think something that's funny too is like, I don't know if you feel this way, but if I'm training really hard, I actually sleep better because I'm more tired. And like if I take an off day, sometimes I don't sleep very well. Like I just like my
100%.
body's not tired and like so I don't not that it like makes you sleep better, but it like when you're
Oh,
exhausted, it makes you
I
sleep.
think it does. I've joked about that. It's like, and if you take like multiple days off in a row, I'm like, how do people sleep?
Yeah.
Don't work out. Like if I'm like 4 or 5 days into not training because I have an injury or I like can't sleep.
Dude, or
So,
eating. I feel so full if I'm not moving, like, and I try to keep up with, like, calories and
oh yeah,
stuff. My stomach, I'm like, "I can't do this. This is I feel like I'm just force feeding." But
I
then
agree.
the next thing too that I think is huge for performance is energy. Like, obviously, you get a lot more energy when you get a full night's sleep. And I think in terms of getting the most out of your training, when you're like, when you feel good and you got a good night of sleep, um, you're gonna have you're gonna stack a lot better days in a row, and that consistency is gonna be huge over time. Um, and I think that there's a lot of athletes here where just kind of use caffeine as a crutch, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't sleep well. Let me just try to get some." Like they get in a cycle of just pumping a bunch of caffeine and then not sleeping well, and it just is like a cycle that keeps breaking down your body more and more. And I think that's where it's important and real mature as an athlete to be able to know when you're when you're really behind on sleep and your body's really run down. You might get a lot more out of taking that day off and sleeping in that morning or something than, going and killing yourself, drinking caffeine all day and then being exhausted all day. So energy restoration, just huge in terms of training volume, training intensity, and being able to bring, 100% intensity to every workout.
Yeah, the importance of that's kind of back to our previous point on muscle recovery and repairs. And just also if you have more energy, you're going to be able to train harder. Then it's even more important to sleep because you're training harder. So yeah, there's just so many different physiological functions that happen while you're sleeping that are impossible to happen while you're awake, including energy restoration, more efficient glycogen transportation. That really on the performance side of things, the physical performance side of things, you know, it's it's hugely important. Also on the mental side of the importance of sleep is during REM sleep. So you kind of get the physical recovery um, in the deep sleep portion. I'm probably going to butcher this, but I think there's essentially there's like there's more than this, but if we're being putting in layman's terms, there's three stages of sleep. There's like light sleep, which is kind of like right as you're falling asleep. There's deep sleep, which is where a lot of the physical restoration happens. That's where the growth hormones release. That's when you get a lot of the glycogen replenishing happening, where the muscle repair is happening. And then there's REM sleep. And REM sleep, you kind of dip into multiple times through the night. That's actually where you dream. So anytime you have dreams, you know you're getting REM sleep. But during REM sleep, that's where the kind of like cognitive mental recovery happens. So that's where your brain is actually healing. It's taking time to rest. And so if you're getting quality sleep, you're probably getting, you know, I don't know what the exact number is, but I think it's like a little over an hour of REM sleep a night. You get that in like 3 or 4 different cycles, REM cycles. But the importance there is it you feel mentally fresh, you have a clearer mind, and, it also from an athletic performance standpoint, you get better reaction time, increased, decision making, especially, in a wrestling match, you have a lot of decision making happening very quickly. Um, these are things that are super important. The cognitive aspect of the cognitive restoration aspect of sleep can't be overstated as well.
And I think this, like, was really illustrated well, in this book, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. He does a great job explaining that too, where it's like, it's so important for your body to go through those cycles when you're sleeping, and when you cut your sleep short, your brain doesn't, like, um, remember that stuff as well, and that goes for, like, and I'm sure, Max, you probably pulled some all-nighters in college too, where it's like you're better off probably getting a couple hours of sleep in there instead of where you'd
Yep.
remember the material better. That goes for, like, learning a new technique in sports, in, uh, whatever you're doing. Maybe you're in your job, in your day-to-day. So super important for cognitive function for sure. And then, yeah, like you're saying, reaction time, um, just in sports is everything. That you're talking about fractions of a second making a difference in something. So, being
Yep.
alert and ready to go is way, way important. And then I think the next one too is hormonal balance.
Right.
So your hormonal regulation is super important in terms of your body, right? And I think that there's a lot of factors that affect this, but I'd go as far to say, like, I don't think there's something that affects it as much as, like, your sleep. Because, like, if your sleep's out of whack, everything's out of whack. And I mean, how many times is somebody, like, with a little kid, they're like, "Oh, they're kinda crabby because they didn't sleep enough," and,
Yeah.
it just it affects everything that you're doing with your hormones, and disrupted, like, sleep patterns over a long period of time will mess with your hormonal balances, and that'll totally affect your athletic performance, and so it's just super important to get this right, and have a plan for your sleep, um, long term for a better long-term success.
Yeah. It's all these different functions that you can't get while you're awake. And, the production of hormones in your body is one of those, or it doesn't happen as well. Some cases, not at all. And yeah, so if you're not sleeping, you're not going to have a healthy endocrine system, which means, you're not going to have healthy hormones.
Yeah. No, it's super important. And then injury prevention. Obviously, I think this one kind of encapsulates a lot of the stuff we were talking about, but in general, you know, like, one, if your uh, reaction times are impaired from not having a lot of sleep, like, could be the difference between getting out of the way or getting your knee blown out in a play in football, or I think making smart decisions quickly in sports, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. So injury prevention, um, being smart about your training, being focused when you throw 400 pounds on your back and you're going down and you're locked in versus, kind of throwing it on, not ready, you're tired and walking into something. Um, your coordination's impaired by bad sleep, your balance, your reaction time, like, all of these affect a risk of injury. And obviously, no matter what you're doing, you don't want to be injured. So just super can't overstate it enough. Sleep, overwhelmingly really good for you, really important for any athletic, related
Yeah.
endeavors.
And this, I think it's something that athletes do come to appreciate more as they get older, because I think it becomes more obvious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I know it's a lot more obvious for me now if I get a bad night of sleep than it was in high school and college. But I think something that high school and college athletes could definitely take more seriously, or just younger people in general,
Yeah.
maybe right up post grad, um, is sleep more, focus more on it because
Yeah,
it's something
100%.
that college kids like for sure suck at
Yeah. Well,
it.
and it's like, I don't know, it's tough to like, you sleep all the time, so you're like, "Oh, whatever, 1 night of sleep, it's not a big deal." But it stacks up, and it messes up your, like, your 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 consistent times of going to bed and waking up. If you're messing with that a lot, like, I think a lot of college kids especially, like, they might do a decent job throughout the week, hopefully, is varying, like, maybe not finals week or something like that, or really procrastinating something, and then on the weekend, they usually go to bed at 10:30,
Yeah,
11, but then on the weekend, they go to bed at 4, and so then the whole next day they sleep, and it just, like, the next week, your next 3 days, you're trying to get back on your schedule, it messes
yeah,
everything up, and when you got these
yeah,
high athletic goals, it's like you can't afford to have 3 or 4 bad days of sleep every single week. That's like it's half your week, and, I think it's really easy to get in that pattern, and then, again, you get in the cycle of ripping caffeine, and then you get bad sleep because 'cause you're up later, and then you just start snowballing.
yeah. It's downhill. Yeah, so that's a good segue into kind of I think that the one of our first and probably it's maybe the most important tip for good sleep is consistency. Having a consistent sleep schedule that you stick to, your body, that's how the human body works on a circadian rhythm. So as if you consistently go to bed at the similar time, your body's going to start producing, the hormones to make you sleepy at that time. It gets better at producing them at that time. So then you fall asleep when you need to fall asleep. So yeah, that consistency of sleep is, if you're going to like put one at the top, I might put that one at the top. What is your schedule?
Yeah, yeah. So one I'll tell you in one sec. One more thing on that. I think the huge thing with consistency, like, our bodies love routine, and so, like,
Yep.
if you can have and part of your circadian rhythm is, like, your food schedule too. So, like, if you can
Yep.
have similar food, like, feeding windows, and most people, whether they realize it or not, they train
They
similar
do.
times throughout the day too.
Yep.
And your body's, like, ready for that workout because it's like, "Okay, this is when I'm gonna have a high athletic output," and your body gets used to that. So, if you can keep the consistency in your sleep schedule and then pair that with your food schedule, it's easier to especially when you talk about traveling a lot, like, athletes are traveling a lot, maybe you're traveling for your work, you're on all different time zones. I mean, just this weekend, flew from West Coast to East Coast and then back to, like, Mountain Time. It's like, I'm going 3-hour time changes, and yeah, it's gonna affect you somewhat, but I think it's easier if you can try to keep some kind of consistency and, like, immediately get on the local time in terms of your food eating, and then try to make sure that, like, you don't right when you get there, you don't take a nap at 5 PM because it's gonna mess up your night of sleep that night. Sometimes
Yep.
I think there's a lot of things you can do, especially when you're traveling or if you're going overseas, like, you might have to gut out not taking a nap when it's late or staying up a little bit longer than you would to get on the circadian rhythm, and the sunlight plays a big role in that. So making sure you get sunlight in the morning, and then at nighttime, not having bright lights and everything in your face and working on a computer where you got a bunch of lights in your eyes. So
Yep.
long-winded, but
But it's
yeah.
that's true. What do you try and stick to for a sleep
Dude, I'm such a morning
schedule?
person. Yeah, such a morning person.
Yeah,
So
me
I
too.
I feel like by, like, depending on how early I gotta wake up, but consistently, I'm probably getting up around 6 to 6:30. So I try to get to bed by, like, 10, and
Yep.
sometimes it's a little earlier, sometimes it's a little later. But I think, what honestly helps me is and it's really tough because, like, our phones are engineered to, like, make you wanna scroll or whatever, but if you can, like, not be on your phone before bed and, like, read a book or something, I get
It's
such better
huge.
sleep. My mind's,
Yeah.
like, done, um, kinda unorthodox too, is, like, if I can write down like, if I'm thinking about things, I'll have a notebook by my bed. I'll write it down so I'm like, I can get to that in the morning instead of trying to remember it, and then I'm, like, thinking about stuff, and then I'm just laying there for an hour not falling asleep. Um,
Yeah.
I I used to take a lot of naps in college. I'd, like, work out, nap, another workout, go to bed, but now it's like, 1, I don't have time for that, and 2, I'm getting a lot of sleep, but I think naps are good, especially if you're training a lot. If you can do it, earlier in the day, I'm talking like, like a 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock nap, not
Yeah.
like a
It's not
4 o'clock,
disrupting your
5 o'clock.
sleep.
Yeah.
Well, I
What
think
about
that
you?
gets to I'm probably more of a like a 9 to 5, 9:30 to 5:30.
Okay.
I'm also a morning person. I don't know. I kind of believe though that there's no such thing as morning people. It's just if
Yeah.
you're getting to bed early and getting good sleep, you're
Yeah,
gonna be more of a
absolutely.
morning person.
Yeah.
Maybe there's slight genetic differences, but in general, you'll be more of a morning person if you get good quality sleep. But yeah, both of us, you can hit, we're aiming for 8 hours ish of sleep, but there's actually, and I've seen several studies now where, especially for athletes, you know, optimal is probably closer to 9. So to your
Yeah.
point of a nap, like while you were wrestling in college, the desire to take a nap and listening to that body, your body's desire to take a nap and actually do it is probably because you were probably trying to get close to that 9 total hours of sleep. um, that's like the optimal, like if you're trying to optimize everything, getting 9 hours of sleep is a lot of times not realistic. Like I have a hard time just staying asleep for 9 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not an easy thing to do, but that's probably the perfect amount. So as close as you can get to that, but really 8,
Yeah.
aim for that 8-ish range.
This is totally anecdotal too, so, like, total bro science, but, I started to realize too, like, 1, when you consistently take naps, your body, like, craves that too, like, we're talking about routine, like, I would
Yep.
start getting tired right around the same time, but I'd set my class schedule and my training schedule up, so, like, that was a window where I could sleep, um, and then I think the other thing was I realized, what window of sleep would make me feel good and not be groggy, and I think this is I don't know. There's, like obviously, you probably don't wanna get into super deep sleep taking a nap, and I didn't wanna
Yep.
take, like, 2-hour, 3-hour nap, but I felt like if I could get, like, 45 minutes to, like, an hour and a half, so usually around an hour nap, I'd feel good where I could wake up, get some food, go to practice, and I'd be awake, ready to go. If I
Yep.
slept, like, an hour and a half to 2 hours, it'd take me, like, the first 15, 20 minutes of practice to wake up because I was just, like,
Yeah.
groggy.
No, no, that's actually, that's very real science, I think. And yeah, I've read multiple different things. I know like NASA has another like 26 minutes of actual sleeping. So if you lay down to take a nap, there's some time where you're falling asleep, but like if you take an hour nap, you probably slept you were, out light sleep to deep sleep for like 26 or so minutes. So if you block off an hour, that's probably about the exact right amount of time.
Yeah,
Cause yeah, you don't want to mess with one. Yeah, you'll feel groggy, and two, then you can also mess with your sleep that night. If
100%.
you sleep too much during a nap, but very healthy. Probably it's a good example of another way you were taking things seriously and doing what you could to optimize your performance while you were a college athlete.
Yeah, it's tough too. You pulled a lot of different ways. There was times I had to like study or something in that time, but I try to protect it. Um, but it's also like, we'd have athlete dining and it'd be like all your buddies are hanging out and you're like, all right, guys, I gotta go after lunch quick and be like, I gotta go sleep. But it
I
was
go
like,
take my nap.
yeah.
Did anyone make fun of you for nap time?
No, I mean, I don't know. Most everybody was like doing their own thing, right? But
Yeah.
I was like, there's definitely times where it's like, oh, I like it was fun. We're all joking around, having a good time. And that's important too. You need your social stuff. But it was like I was gonna get more out of this, out of my training if I got this in. So I tried to protect that time. And then I think there's a lot of things with that too, where like if you can get blackout curtains super cheap, way better for your sleep, especially if you wake up like if you can sleep in a little bit, you're gonna wake up earlier if you got sunlight coming in. I'm a huge fan of like a super dark room.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
you need cold
Super
room.
dark. Yep. Super
Uh,
dark room, blackout curtains. You can do eye masks too if you can
I
sleep with them on.
That's a great point. I do that. Taking naps, eye masks would help if it was like if you're traveling or something and your room's not that dark, you're in a hotel, like throw an eye mask on. Hopefully it helps. Or you're on a
Yep.
plane, like I've seen guys pull just their beanies over their eye. Works
Yep.
well.
Yeah. Just get dark. Dark
Just
room, cold room.
cold.
I think cold is a huge one. That's for a lot of reasons really important.
That's kinda counterintuitive too, like, um, you'd think like cold tubs before bed, but you're supposed to do like either like a warm bath or like sauna before bed if you're gonna do some kind of
Yep.
heat or cold because then your body starts dumping it and then it starts dumping the heat and you get cold. Um, and I think 67 degrees is the ideal temperature. Um,
I've heard
so
like 62 to 67, so pretty chill. It
62,
depends on yeah, it depends also
I'll be
like what kind of
freezing.
blankets you have. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I've no like I live up here in the mountains. I crack the window at night. It'll get yeah, definitely down to that. But you have like a big comforter. I mean,
yeah,
I sleep so those are the days where I'm like slept like a rock
yeah,
is when it's
absolutely.
like chilly in the room. Um, but yeah, cold room, dark room. And then another really important thing is something I used to do in college is having I don't it doesn't have to be quiet, but a consistent noise. So, like, white
Yeah,
noise, if you like silence, great, but that's can be really hard,
yeah,
especially when you're traveling. So I used to travel now they have white noise machines or apps. When I was
yeah.
in college, I used to travel with a box fan.
Dude,
Like
I know a lot of people that do that. Seriously, I had
yeah.
roommates that would do that, teammates that would do that. Yeah, it's a great idea. It's like they're like 20 bucks, right? Like, you put it in
Yeah.
your suitcase and go.
Yeah. No, that is a key is the I'm now I can't sleep without white noise, like, I need a fan, but,
There you go.
um, it's part of that optimal sleeping conditions.
Also a good bed. Like, I don't know, beds are expensive, right? But when you look at it like cost per wear, cost per use, it's probably one of the cheapest things you can do and one of the best things you can do for your health. Like, if it's a good bed that you were, like, excited to get into and you get a good night's sleep where it's not, I don't know, not too firm for you, not too soft,
Yeah.
like, makes a huge difference, and, I don't know, I think that's something worthwhile investment, 100%.
For sure. I'm, being a heavier guy, like, good bed is so important for me. Um, I like the kind I have like, I think it's called a purple, but it's like the whole point of it is like it helps you not overheat at night. It's
Yeah,
got like
nice.
it's for like guys over 250 pounds. So
Nice.
that's
What's
Alexis
Alexis
can
think of
do.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, she can just deal with it. No, she likes it
Alexis,
now.
you got a
But both
first now,
though.
alright?
Yeah. And become a dude.
Yeah. I don't think
um,
she could ever get there.
no, that'd be impressive. That'd be for sure impressive. Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's just like optimal sleeping conditions. Um, at the same time, on that point, you don't want to, and we talked about it a little bit with Darian in the last podcast. It's like you also you need to focus on optimizing all this stuff, but you don't want to become a prima donna or become like obsessed with it to
Yeah.
a point where you're stressing out so much about your sleep that then you're having anxiety about your sleep, which is in
Yeah.
turn hurting your sleep.
Yeah.
So it is a fine line. You should do the things to do make these small adjustments to optimize it, but don't over stress about it either.
Yeah, and I think accepting the fact that, like, you're gonna have bad nights of sleep. I don't care how good your routine is, I don't care how much you spend like, I think the goal here is, like, do as best you can, but there's just
Yep.
gonna be times where you don't have good sleep, and whether that's, like, you're sick, whether that's you're traveling, or just you're thinking about something, you're stressed at work, like, something's gonna come up, you're gonna have a bad night's sleep, get back on the horse tomorrow, like, do
Yep.
what you can,
And
but yeah.
I have noticed with my training, because I do, put a lot of effort into the consistency and the quality of the sleep, that if I am consistent, if I have good consistent sleep, let's say over a 2-week period, and one night I have terrible sleep for whatever the reason is, just couldn't fall asleep or yeah, stress, whatever it is, usually that one night doesn't affect my performance so much
Yeah,
if I'm taking care of my sleep at other times. It's when I'm like it's like it adds up when you get a couple nights bad sleep, you go to sleep really late, then you don't get back on your schedule. That's when it starts messing you up.
100%, and then I think also just being smart with, like, Caffeine. People always say like, "Oh," I know some people are like, "Oh, I could drink, a shot of espresso and go to bed." It still doesn't mean you have better sleep. Like, you would have better sleep without doing that, and so I think cutting that off and knowing when you should cut that off is super important. I think something that is overlooked too is, like, if you don't wanna wake up a bunch, go to the bathroom a bunch in the middle of the night, don't chug a bunch of water right before bed. Maybe if you're
Yep.
waking up a lot throughout the night, cut back your water a little bit, 2 hours before you go to bed. Alcohol,
Which I
100%.
do.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I mean, there's times where it's like, I don't know, I drank a bunch of water before bed, and I'm like, "Dude," I wake up, like, a couple times to go to the bathroom, you're like, "This that was a bad idea. It's a horrible idea."
Yeah, I know.
Um,
I agree. Well, yeah, it's to your point on alcohol or with caffeine, even especially actually like THC, weed related products. Sometimes if you're like, I can drink caffeine and get good sleep, or alcohol actually gives you the perception, alcohol or THC gives you the perception of being sleepy
yeah,
and being tired. Just because you feel like you're sleeping doesn't mean you're getting quality sleep.
yeah,
And that's an important point, definitely with caffeine. Um, Caffeine is going to, and if you, even if you can get to sleep, it's going to inhibit your body's ability to get to deep sleep. Alcohol, I know, like almost completely eliminates your body. Well, it does completely eliminates your body's ability to enter REM sleep and almost completely on deep sleep. And then THC, where you got to be really careful, that one actually helps you get to deep sleep, good for physical recovery, but you can't get REM sleep.
wow, I
So you're
didn't know
going to
that.
really suffer on that. Yeah, you're going to really suffer on that, mental recovery piece. So be careful with, and I think it's any mind altering substance. I was listening to another podcast and they were made a joke of like, like you, like one of the worst times to drink alcohol is after 5 p.m. But that's actually considered like the socially
Right.
acceptable, like
Yeah.
appropriate time to drink. But, probably like if you having alcohol close to bed is like maybe one of the worst things about alcohol for you is how it affects your sleep. So
Mimosas
like,
only. Max
yeah,
Wessel.
yeah. So honest, like if you want, look, drinking's awful for you. It's one of the worst things you can do from an athletic standpoint. But if you want to drink, like and have it affect you less, drink in the morning. Like
Yeah.
that's the so
Oh, yeah, but don't do it all day and all night because that just doesn't help either.
no, that doesn't. Yeah,
Guys,
don't drink.
they
But if you
said put in
do,
the morning, so I'm gonna can't drink all day if you don't start in the
yeah.
morning.
Well, that's like you have a glass of wine at dinner. You're a successful business person, but you drink at 10 a.m. You're like a charlatan.
Yeah.
But really, one is scientifically better for you.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's still bad for you, but that's and then THC, like that's really dangerous because it actually helps you feel like you're sleepy. It makes you feel like you're going to sleep better, but
Yeah,
you're messing with your REM sleep,
yeah,
which is like arguably the most important part of sleep because brain health is arguably the most important thing.
super important.
So just be
100%.
careful with your substances around sleep,
Yeah,
caffeine, alcohol, weed, THC, even like large amounts of CBD, all those things. Like, really the best sleep hygiene, you don't have to take anything to get to sleep.
yeah,
But if you are, like, let's spend a minute talking about some supplements. Actually, there's
yeah.
a couple supplements you should, you know, take before sleeping that don't mess with your sleep hygiene. We can get into those, and then there's some that be a little careful with.
Yeah, I think magnesium helps your, like, muscles relax. There's quite a bit of different kinds of magnesium. Um, so making sure you're doing your research on that end. But I think magnesium's huge. Melatonin, I think that's the thing that everybody, like, takes some melatonin and they pop melatonin. I know it's helpful. I don't personally play with melatonin too much. I don't think I've ever really taken it. I think it helps you get to sleep, but not super long. And I know a lot of brands put a lot more than what they say on the bottle. So you think it's
Yeah,
super effective. Um, but be careful with that too, because you mess with it a little bit. Do you have
that's
any
yeah,
experience with
that's
melatonin?
the I do. That's was one of the ones I think it can be a helpful tool in certain circumstances or scenarios, but it should not be something regularly used. I think it's helpful if you're like adjusting to a time zone and
Yeah,
that's like it can kind of help you get to sleep. But you should not become reliant on it. And, here's like is that melatonin in like a, oral form is actually, it's like, that's a prescription medication in Europe.
Wow.
And here in the US, we just like wing it around willy nilly. Like people are taking
USA.
10 grams. Have you ever like I used to buy these things. I don't know if you've ever seen them called NeuroSleep. They were
Uh-uh.
like these orange bottles. I got them like when I was in high school. They had like 10 milligrams of melatonin, which is
Wow.
I would but if you ever want to have an argument for not taking it, take 10 milligrams of melatonin and try like waking up the next day. You're like have a splitting headache and super groggy.
Groggy, yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so groggy. But so I think melatonin can be useful. You go to a new place, yeah, you're traveling, but definitely don't use it consistently and don't become reliant on it. That's one of those ones I'd be careful with. But I agree with you. Magnesium is something you could do every night. It's only going to be beneficial. I think other supplements that help with calming your nervous system can be really beneficial and helpful and just good for improving sleep quality. That's like you could use taurine,
Yeah.
even L-theanine in the right doses. There's one we talked about it on our supplements podcast that I take called phosphatidylserine. That's also a CNS kind of depressant, helps you chill out, helps your central nervous system recover. Um, those things that don't like make you tired, but just help with your recovery are probably the supplements that you want to or could take more consistently.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think I try to get these other things right before supplements for sure, but I think they're definitely I mean, like we always say, right? The hierarchy of it, you hit your low hanging fruit first, but there's definitely some stuff that you can do to help optimize once you get the foundation correctly, or correct. And then again, I know I already said it, but I think Why We Sleep is an awesome book by Matthew Walker. I think that's a great book if you're just interested in general sleep. And there's some people that might, need to go talk to a sleep expert if you're really having issues sleeping. But I think most people would benefit from just changing a few things and then consistently over time figuring out what works for them, the best.
Yep, I agree. So that's why it's important to sleep if you didn't already know.
Heck yeah. Everybody get to sleep. Santa's coming.
Yep. Santa will know if you didn't sleep.